Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, I will be joined by Pet Needs to chat about their most recent album, Primetime Entertainment. Before then, though, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome everyone to the Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted today to be joined by Johnny from Pet Needs. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey Paul, I'm good, man. I am currently sitting in a kind of campsite. I'll take my phone off and say in a campsite.
Wow.
I'm in the van in a campsite in Huntington Boat Haven, which is near Cambridge. We did a show over in Birmingham last night. And then drove here. We've got a friend that owns a static caravan, so we're kind of crashing here. It's the joy of touring the UK, really, is that you can kind of rely on friends a little bit more, and we keep ending up in loads of interesting places. So I'm good. It's very calm. I've just been eating hobnobs. I've got a coffee down here, and yeah, all good. Paul, how are you doing?
Yeah, no, we're fantastic and absolutely delighted to have you on because, as you touch upon, you are on tour at the moment. So you're out with Frank Turner, obviously, a great friend of the band, and you're about 5 dates in, 6 dates in.
Yeah, we've done. We've done 5. Yes, we've done 5. No, 6. We've done 6 now. Yeah, they've been great so far. They've been really cool. We did Brixton Academy the other day, which is absolutely mind-blowing. That's one of those dream venues.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think actually, and I wasn't expecting it, but we did Birmingham last night, and I think it was show of the tour. And I think it's because a lot of people didn't know who we were there, so it felt like we were really winning in this really cool, like 3-tiered building, and it had this real kind of like old theatre vibe. And yeah, it's brilliant. But the whole tour's been great. And we're touring with a band called Truck Stop Honeymoon as well, who are a husband and wife duo from Kansas who now live in Wales, who are just incredible people. So we're having the best time.
Yeah, well, we're going to be heading along to the Cambridge show, which is the next show on the stop to review it. So we're really looking forward to that tomorrow. Yeah.
So we get to hang out in person then. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, you kind of touched upon it, but how are you finding the tour? And getting back into a proper, fully fledged tour in the UK again.
It's so different because we've just done 2 months in the USA, where we did one drive between shows that was 21 hours long. And there's so many different, like I'm vegetarian, well, I'm pescatarian, but like predominantly vegetarian when you're eating out. And just trying to like find vegetarian food in America was really challenging and stuff. And America's kind of so much of everything. Like we met the best people in the world because we were seeing America through playing punk shows, which is really, really cool. But then also it's huge and it's massive and it's loud and it's crazy. And then we've gone from that to now doing a tour of the UK where our last drive was from Nottingham to Birmingham and it was 1 hour, 10 minutes, which is amazing. We're actually being able, instead of just having to drive from venue to venue, we'll be able to see a little bit more of the country. And yesterday, we get £10 a day. It's called a buyout. So when you're on tour, you get £10 a day for food. And we went for a carvery and we ate all the vegetables and stuff. And we felt so good after doing that. So yeah, it's really cool. And we can keep bumping into different friends all around the UK as well, which is great. And it's really good to be back in front of English crowds and being in front of English crowds of this size for the first time as well, because we kind of popped off and did Europe and then did America. So this is our first time back in the country that we live. So yeah, it's really cool, man.
Yeah, and obviously, we'll touch on the new album in a moment because that's a major thing that's happened for you guys recently. But just sticking with the touring at the moment, I know you also did a second edition of the Borrowed Toothpaste tour, which is basically you booking shows in people's houses and going around, and obviously the juxtaposition between that and playing Brixton Academy and Rock City, obviously another legendary venue that you've just played, obviously shows the dexterity of both the band and the music that you obviously perform. How has that been for you to go from kind of one extreme to the other
there? I think actually it's doing the big gigs are a lot more predictable because your set's kind of similar. every night, and you kind of know the kind of tricks that work, and you're going out in front of an audience, you know kind of what's going to happen backstage and everything. Doing the Borough Toothpaste tours, every single show is different. Like, we played a really hippie kind of like seated show in someone's back garden. We played some kind of like chaotic flat parties and stuff. And every single one's different, and their shows are just completely owned by our fans as well. So what I love about Borough Toothpaste is that you actually have that real kind of like sense of complete adventure with it, because you don't know what you're going to walk into. And also, that's how we actually got to know the place that we're staying now, is that we played in a place called Huntingdon, and we were booked a place on this campsite, and then we went out on, it's our friend Hamish who booked it. He like lives on a boat, and we went out on his boat and went to the pub and stuff. So you see so much more of people's lives when you're doing a Borough Toothpaste. It's so cool. And then doing this big tour is definitely kind of a lot more professional, in the fact that it's all kind of like a lot more regimented, and Frank's team are like super pro. But then you also get that rush of like, walking out at venues like Rock City, which I was born in Nottingham, so that was like always the venue that I really wanted to play. So yeah, both are amazing. And then we're doing a UK headline tour, which I think is going to kind of mix both of them in December, where we're playing kind of 100, 200 cap venues. And when you're at that size, a lot of the venues are really different from each other. So yeah, that's going to be really cool as well, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're certainly getting, to see the world and, experience some amazing things over the last 6 months or so. I mean, the last time we spoke was on the Discover New Music podcast on the release of your first album. And I should acknowledge the fact that you're the first band to progress from that podcast to this podcast, our main podcast for the more experienced acts. So, well done. Obviously shows some level of career progression, I suppose, for what it's worth. But obviously delighted to have you back on. And speaking of those experiences, obviously America, that's a bucket list for many bands, and obviously getting to go out and do that, especially after the 2 years of the pandemic. Say last time we were talking, we were just coming out of bands not really being able to play shows. So what was the experience like for you in America?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you so much for having us on this podcast. That's really cool, man. It's really cool to know. America was it's just incredible. Like, it's like we did so many things that we never thought we would do, and we kind of did it all ourselves. We like tour managed ourselves. We drove ourselves, which I thought was really important, because you really got to see the country. And we did things like we just drove through Yellowstone National Park while like wild bison were running around. We got free tickets to Disney World just by chance, like free VIP pass tickets to Disney World. Like, we played in Las Vegas. We were like, it was like everything was just nuts. We played at the Wilton in Los Angeles, and you could open the door and you just see the Hollywood sign. And it felt weirdly like this kind of a weird, like, I know everyone would say, oh, it feels like a dream. It like literally felt like you were dreaming sometimes. You were having so much sensory information coming in all the time. And like so many things that you'd seen on films and stuff. And weirdly, just being around people that spoke with an American accent all the time, like, you just felt like you were like in a film. But I think what was really cool is that we kind of saw momentum build as we were going around as well. We started up in New England, and American audiences are super welcoming and super supportive of support bands. But as we went around the tour, because we were there for 2 months, we saw like more and more people turning up in Pet Needs t-shirts, and then more and more people singing along. And I think it kind of climaxed in our second to last show, which was in Las Vegas. I think that's a bit of a holiday destination as well. It felt like hundreds of people who had seen us all the way around for the rest of the 2 months came down to that show. And it was amazing. And like, yeah, just cannot wait to get back. So I'd say America's a really interesting place. It's an interesting place, like politically and stuff, but we were so lucky that we got to meet people through playing punk shows, because every single like state that we went to, we got to like dive into the subculture and meet some of the best people in the world. So yeah, it's really awesome, man.
Yeah, no, absolute incredible experience. And as we spoke a lot last time around the DIY like ethos of the band, and
Mm.
how important it is to sort of be building yourselves up through your own work. And obviously I'm guessing there might have been a moment or two on that tour where you just had to pinch yourself and think, wow, this is not saying no, we've made it or anything like that, because obviously it's still very hard for musicians out there at the moment. But yeah, there must have been a few highlights on that tour for you.
Yeah, it was just like it was. I think the biggest thing was that I just felt real pride for the boys as well, because we were offered a tour manager for the tour, and they were saying, we asked kind of what will a tour manager do, and they said, well, they'll just make sure you get to the right places at the right time and make sure you've got everything you need and stuff. I was like, well, we've kind of been doing that ourselves for 6 years, so let's just see if we can do it. And the fact that everything just kind of like working out our merch stock and selling our merch and making sure that we'd booked all the right hotels and got to the right places at the right time and everything, and then just driving ourselves as well. We were completely our own machine, and so I was just so proud of the boys and myself, doing it successfully, making sure that it worked. I think going to Disney World was the biggest kind of like pinch yourself moment. Because we just got a Instagram message off a girl called Chloe, who'd been to the show the day before in Florida, and said, "Oh, like really enjoyed the set. Just to let you know that I work at Disney World and I can get you free VIP passes whenever you want. Next time you're coming through town, kind of let us know and we'll hook you up." And we were like, "We're literally in Florida right now and we've got a day off. Can we come right now?" And like half an hour later, they'd like sent a car for us, and we were hopping in this car, not really knowing if this was legit or not. So we were hopping in a car with a lady called Chloe, who seemed really nice, and it turned out she was really nice, which was cool. And suddenly we were sitting, because we had queue jump and everything, we were suddenly sitting on a roller coaster, of which one, I had no clue what the roller coaster did. Turns out it throws you backwards in the dark into this massive mountain. It's terrifying. So I hadn't been on a roller coaster for about 15 years. So I just remember, I think the biggest, like, how has life turned to this? Like, how has kind of like writing little punk songs in my spare room on a battered acoustic guitar turned into this, when I was being pulled up this like ride that goes all the way around Mount Everest. I pulled up to the top, and I had about a 20-second thought of how has life turned to this, and I had about 2 minutes of absolute terror when it just flung us backwards into the dark. Yeah, but it was nuts. It was so cool. And then we got to play with some of our favorite bands as well. We toured with the Bronx as well as Frank Turner. And they were amazing, and we learned so much from them about kind of like showmanship, but also how to tour well and the business side of stuff. They really took us under their wing, and then toured, played with some incredible bands as well. I found a genuine new favorite band, a band called AJJ, that we did 3 shows with, who are so vulnerable and so kind of like their music's really kind of anxiety ridden, but then it's delivered with such kind of passion and ferocity as well. And it was amazing. So yeah, the whole experience was incredible, and we met amazing people, and we really want to go back out there before our visas run out.
Well, the visa aspect kind of brings me on to the next question, actually, because again, talking about what it's like to be a DIY band and obviously do this work yourselves. You've just been across to Europe, obviously there's additional problems for UK artists getting across to Europe now. Yeah, how did you find the challenge of getting across there?
Oh my God, Paul. So ever since, I mean, you've always had to do this from America. We didn't know any of this because we've only started traveling recently. But the biggest thing is that you have to have this thing called a carnet form. It's really frustrating because one, you have to pay for it. You have to pay hundreds of pounds for it. But then you have to go to this place where all the truck drivers go, and they have to check that all the music gear that you're bringing in is all the gear that you say you're bringing in. And then like you have to have everything signed off and everything. The whole process can take like an hour to do. And you have to do it when you leave the UK and then when you arrive in France as well. And it's so frustrating because if like George has just changed his amp recently, and so we've had to go through the whole process again of getting a whole new form and getting everything changed. And so it's just something, it's more expensive for bands to tour, and it's a massive pain as well to have to do all that kind of paperwork stuff, which is pointless. Like everyone on the border knows it's pointless. We know it's pointless. But then I think the hardest thing as well is that you can bring no merch over with you either.
Mm.
So we have to have contacts in Germany where we get our t-shirts printed in Germany and then sent to us in Germany, as opposed to having them all printed just in the UK. And this time we went for just for one show, which means that we printed like a small batch, which means that printing costs, which are already going up anyway because of kind of like materials and stuff, printing costs are more expensive once we're out there. Also, we've kind of like got to drive and pick things up from different places, and it just makes something that used to be. I was talking to Dan and Lorna from Skinny Lister about this actually, and they said that they went to tour Europe once, and this was about 10 years ago, and one of them had forgot their passport, and they were able to show a picture of their passport and be still let across the border. But now kind of everything is just so tight, and it just feels unnecessary as well. So yeah, it makes touring ridiculously hard. And then if you add on to that as well, kind of venue merch fees as well, just kind of we're kind of at the moment experientially and culturally and like mentally the richest people in the world, because we get to do so many cool things. But then financially it's so hard. It's so hard, and kind of like having things like Brexit like really kicking us, and then like venues taking kind of a big percentage of our main income, which is merch, is really hard. So we're kind of at the point at the moment where we're having conversations like, do we have to get day jobs kind of in January, or are we just going to try and still just keep touring and keep kind of trying to sell those t-shirts, you know?
Yeah.
Which the latter is the one that I really want to do, because that means we can still stay professionally creative. Yeah, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's obviously it really is a tough time for everyone, and the music industry's been particularly hit with everything that's been going on, Brexit and the cost of living, and you talk about the merch taxation almost from venues, when you're performing at venues, and that's quite a hot topic at the minute. I did notice, I think it was last night, the Big Moon were playing a show at the Forum in Kentish Town, and decided they needed to sell their merch from a pub down the road, because obviously that's going to give them more, which again, is a nice DIY move, but we probably shouldn't be having to do that. Artists shouldn't be having to do that. But there's a bigger conversation there, and we can go down a political rabbit hole really with Brexit and obviously the additional pressures on touring in Europe. I mean, imagine the people that voted Brexit, didn't expect, production of t-shirts to have to move out of the UK. That clearly isn't what Brexit was all about. But again, we could probably talk for hours about all of that and just drag everyone down. But we'll talk about something a bit more enjoyable, and of course that is your second album. So Primetime Entertainment is the title of it. It's been out for about 2 or 3 weeks now, and obviously listeners need to go and have a listen to it and check it out, because it is really, really good. First question, obviously, being your second album, there's always a lot of that second album pressure. How do you feel, the recording process and everything compared with this album compared to Fractured Party Music, your debut album?
Yeah, so with Fractured Party Music, there was kind of less pressure, because to be honest, Paul, didn't even really think anyone was ever going to hear it, really. It was kind of more of we were writing completely for ourselves. The tracks on there, we'd written them before we knew we were going to do an album. So a lot of them we were like handpicking some of our favourite tracks, then writing some extra tracks around them. And actually the tracks that we wrote in the few weeks leading up to it were the ones that became the singles, which is really interesting. And then we just like went into the studio. Like I take on just like a bastard like microphone when I was running around the room and stuff. And then it got picked up afterwards. So there was no real pressure with that. We were told we had like a couple of years to record the second album, and we ended up recording it like 11 months after we got the record deal. And I think it's just because I had this newfound confidence and drive that someone had a belief in what we were doing. And also it was in the middle of lockdown as well, so I didn't have much else to do either. And so it felt like the songs just kept coming and coming and coming. I was kind of felt really lucky about that. Like, I don't think we really had the difficult second album in the way that other bands kind of feel that struggle. However, I am feeling the pressure of the difficult third album at the moment,
Yeah.
because it feels almost like, because this is the first album where it's like, right, I'm setting out to write an album this time. It almost felt like Fractured Party Music was a collection of songs from the past 4 years, and then this was like the first album that I'd kind of like set out specifically to write. And now I'm starting to get ideas for album number 3, but I'm feeling kind of a little bit intimidated about starting at the moment. But with album 2, I didn't decidedly do it, but I think it might have been through being in lockdown and through being kind of like in my own head and with my own thoughts and stuff for a while. It's kind of like a lot more self-reflective, a lot more personal. So that was the thing that was making me nervous, was kind of like releasing things that are a lot more kind of exposing about myself and my own kind of like mental health and stuff into the world. But it seems to have gone down really well, which I'm excited about. And what I really like, and what I wasn't expecting, is that some of the album tracks are a lot of people's favorite tracks, which is cool. So yeah, it's gone down well, man. I'm happy to get it out in the world.
Yeah, and it must be kind of indication and catharsis and all that for you. Obviously, you talked about you touched on some kind of heavy subjects, especially again mental health. And I will say it, for men is quite difficult to talk about. It's obviously difficult for everyone, but there's particular pressures on men, stiff upper lip and all that. So it's great that we've got artists these days that are willing to talk about it, and obviously you will feel vulnerable in doing so, and you've got that immediate reaction now because you've got social media, and obviously you said that you think the reaction's been really positive and good, but how much attention did you tend to pay to that as you were putting the material and the album out? Are you checking social media? Are you talking to fans at shows and asking them what do they think of it?
So I said to myself that I wasn't going to read reviews for the album this time, because last time we got one bad review for Fractured Party Music, and then I read it about 100 times. And I really kind of like and it was a woman who has her own blog in Ireland. And I also know that music is completely, this is a story that I was telling myself with the lead up to this album, is the music's completely subjective. All of my favorite bands, not everybody likes. If everybody likes you end up being like Coldplay or Ed Sheeran or something, which is cool. But I want to be fringe music, and I want to be for people that feel they're a little bit more kind of on the edge. Well, I want it to be for everyone really, but I don't want it to just be kind of like bland stuff that appeals to everyone. Then the very first review for Primetime Entertainment came in, and I read it, and then the second one came in and I read it, and then suddenly I was kind of like scrolling Twitter and Instagram and stuff to look at where we've been tagged. So luckily, like there's actually, weirdly, it's had less press this time than last time, because we released the album unfortunately directly the day after the Queen died. So like all press just went to the Queen's death and funeral and stuff. So it's had we kind of like got national press and stuff for album 1, but the press that we've got for this one, it's kind of been overwhelmingly positive, which is really cool. And it means a lot that I've been able to put so much of myself out into it, and have a positive response, which is good. But I'm still trying to, it's one of my own anxiety things, and it's a really bad business to be in if I can't cope with this. But I'm still trying to get to the point that if a bad review did come out, then I'd be absolutely fine with it as well, because it's somebody's subjective opinion, which on paper I think I will be now, but we don't know until it happens, which it inevitably will do, because it's art and it's subjective,
Yeah, definitely, and it's going to depend on what mood you're in when you meet that review and read that review as well, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, sure thing.
So you worked obviously with Frank again on the album. He helped produce the album, and obviously you're still with Extra Mile Recordings. So we talked a bit about last time around and how fantastic they are. So again, what was the recording process like for you and working with people like
that? So different to what we've done before. Like I was saying with Fractured Party Music, it was all about having that energy and having everything being very, very super like spontaneous and in the moment. And then with this album, Frank said to me, okay, where are we going to do pre-production? I didn't know what pre-production was. I didn't know it was a thing. Once he explained it to me, we borrowed our local venue, Coda, from our friend Tristan on a Monday night when it's usually closed, and we kind of like set up on stage and played through the whole album live. We played each song twice in a row, while Frank Turner was sitting there kind of like making notes like some kind of like punk rock Simon Cowell, and not telling us what notes he was making either. And then we all sat round in a circle and like spoke about kind of like arrangements and melodies and guitar tones and all that kind of stuff. Whereas before we just ran into the studio and went, here are the songs, let's go, like that. Whereas this, we had so much more kind of like time thinking about stuff. And then like with Fracture Party Music, most of the vocal takes, this is just like from my end, most of the vocal takes were just first take. If I sang it in tune, then it was in. Whereas this time we did like maybe kind of like between 10 and 20 vocal takes for every single song. And it wasn't just about singing it in tune. It was like Frank said, like, deliver this line like you're throwing a wallet on a floor and then just walking out the room. And so it was like this really specific creative direction. So he wasn't directing us in, yeah, that's in tune, next song. Which for Fracture Party Music, because we didn't have any money, we had like less time as well. So it was kind of, because of time, we just had to throw everything out. With this, we had like over double the amount of time spent in the studio, so it really gave us breathing space. But you can tell with Frank that he's like sat beside some of the best producers in the world. I already massively respected him as a songwriter, and even more than a songwriter, really respected him as an arranger. And now just like being able to spend a couple of weeks with him in the studio, I just think he's a genius producer as well. So yeah, it's great, man. Really cool.
No, excellent. And one of the lead singles that come out from the album was Get on the Roof. So I just wanted to ask you about that track and what are the meanings behind that song?
Sure. So it was the first show that we ever played with Frank, and we were down in Devon at a place called the Big Sheep, and it was an outdoor, socially distanced show. It was really it was good fun, but kind of post-apocalyptic in a way as well, because you were playing to a field that could maybe hold about 3,000-4,000 people, and there's about 600 people there, and there was these big white circles, but it sounds ridiculous now, but there's these big white circles painted on the grass, and 6 people could be inside a circle, and that was it, and the circles weren't allowed to kind of like touch each other or intermingle or anything. And we played that show, but it was the first time in our whole entire life that we'd ever had a rider. And I remember we had like prawn cocktail crisps, and beer and water, and I think that was our whole rider. But it was so excited to have a rider. And then like after the show, obviously we were like kind of, and we still do now, we were like kind of, because otherwise it's going to go in the bin, we were like, right, let's get the rest of the rider, and like we got all the prawn cocktail crisps and the boxes of beer and chucked them in, not in our van, in our car at the time. We were literally driving around in a car with a roof box on. And then I drove home, woke up on the Saturday, and me and my wife Lorna, we don't have much garden space, but we've got a kind of a sloped roof that comes outside our bedroom window, and we often just kind of like chuck a mattress out there and then hop out there and watch the sunset. And we got the last of last night's beers, the last of the rider from the night before, and hopped out and watched the sunset whilst listening to like cinematic film theme tunes. And it was just like a really cool moment. We both got drunk up there, and then it kind of like crawled in at about kind of like midnight, and I just picked up my battered acoustic guitar in the little room that I always write, and the song just kind of fell out of me, and it just happened like that, really naturally.
Yeah, no, lovely story. You're really nice. Obviously, those days of circles in a field are long gone, and you touched on it earlier. Obviously, with new album comes touring, not just the shows that you're playing now with Frank, but you have got a headline tour coming up in December. What should fans expect from that tour from you guys?
I'm so excited because we've spent so much of this year being a support band, which is so cool and really fun. The best thing about being a support band is you get in front of new people and you get to win people over, and you're kind of a guest at somebody else's party. Now with a headline tour, we get to throw our own parties, which is really cool, which means our set gets to be a little bit longer, and instead of just being our support set is just kind of party like that. It's like because you get we get 40 minutes at the moment, and it's just about you're there to warm up for another band. That's what your job is to do. And this one, we get to bring the show in different directions. We get to play some of our heavier stuff, like we've got a song called Spirals that we're going to play, but we also get to bring the show into a kind of like more personal in the new album. And the best thing about kind of like throwing your own party and doing your own headline tour is that you get to pick who's coming on the road with you as well. And we've got 2 amazing acts coming around the UK with us. We've got a band called Tundra, who are from Bury St Edmunds, who we started around the same time. And I've loved their music for so long. It's kind of like punky, kind of surfy kind of stuff, but then you see them play live and they're just a straight up punk band. They're so exciting. And then we've got a lady called Bridget who's touring for the second half of the tour with us, who's kind of it's almost like it feels like 90s grungy kind of music, but then kind of feels really, really modern as well. And she duetted on a song called The Argument on the new album, which means that we're going to be able to play that live together as well, which is really cool. And then so we're touring all the way around the UK, and then it's finishing in Colchester, which is my hometown, at a 400 cap sold out show. And we've got a band called Oxbow Lake, like an acoustic duo opening, and then my favorite local band called Ecto Peach that playing second, and then third a guy called Sean McGowan, who's there with his band, who's a songwriter that I've loved and kind of who's inspired me for so many years. And then that's the last show of the year. That's going to be a real kind of like reflection on like the 150 or odd gigs that we've played this year, and kind of like just touring the world and finishing in our hometown. So it's going to be amazing, Paul. It's the tour that I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, and that Colchester show in particular, I know you've said, in other, interviews, playing that venue as a Colchester act is kind of, showing again, almost like that I made it moment, it's
sure.
Big deal. And obviously, Sean McGowan, an amazing artist, obviously is going to be playing with you. Oxbow Lake, who you actually plugged on the Discover New Music podcast when we talked with you.
Of course, yeah.
And we have subsequently had them on that very podcast.
That's so cool.
So that is going to be a great show, and Ectopetch as well. And Tundra and Bridget are both acts that I've caught live over the last year or so.
No way.
So obviously listeners, clearly, Johnny, you've got great taste in support acts, and listeners, mainly head to a show, definitely, because Pet Needs are going to smash it, but get there early and check out the supports as well, would be my message.
100%. They're going to be amazing. That's so good. So excited to play with them.
Yeah, and another date I noticed on the tour, I suppose, that will have some sentimental value, as you mentioned, with Rock City earlier, is Bodega in Nottingham as well. I'm sure you're looking forward to that one.
I cannot wait. We played there earlier in the year, and it was our first time playing Nottingham, and the venue sold out, and it was just, I think still to this day, is the most nuts headline show we've ever played, especially because the venue, the sound's amazing, the lights are amazing. And the crowd just absolutely bought it. It was incredible. It was like everyone was like crowd surfing, and there was strobes going. And it was the first time that we kind of played out of Colchester headlining and had that reaction. And we played Rock City the other day, and we were talking to so many people. They're like, "I've already got my tickets. It's going to be awesome." So that is going to be amazing. Like I grew up in Nottingham, and then moved to Derby for a little bit, and then back to Nottingham. And those kind of venues, kind of Rock City, Rescue Rooms, Bodega, that kind of like little strip of venues, always going to be so close to my heart. And it's one of my favorite venues on the tour. So it's going to be awesome, man. Yeah, no, excellent. And everyone listening, as I say, lots of opportunities to catch the bands. You've got the remaining dates on the Frank tour, which is a pretty lengthy tour. So that's going on for, a few more weeks. You've got the headline tour coming in December. You've got the album that you need to check out. Obviously, you talked about Get on the Roof. There's a video for that on YouTube that listeners should go and check out.
And obviously, we touched on it on every podcast. The best place to do this is obviously you need to follow the band on social media. And you can do that with Pet Needs on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at We Are Pet Needs, which is nice and simple for me to read out. I'm glad you got them all the same. Thank you again so much, Johnny, for giving up your time in the midst of the tour to talk to us. And hopefully listeners will be able to come out and check out a show. What would be your final message for the listeners today?
I think number 2, I said go listen to Oxbow Lake last time. So I think this time I'd say come and party with us on our UK tour and go listen to Ecto Peach, because they are my favourite local band at the moment and they are just absolutely incredible. Louise, who fronts them, she's fronted quite a few bands over the years and she's always been brilliant, but I've been waiting for her to find the right band that are going to kind of like match that energy and that talent. And she's absolutely found it with Ecto Peach. They are amazing. Kind of like really kind of creative, punky, indie kind of stuff. Also one of the best stage shows I've seen in years. So yeah, go check out Ecto Peach. They are incredible. I've got some amazing videos on YouTube as well.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Johnny. I love that every time I talk to you, I get to discover a new band myself coming out of it, which is excellent. And obviously, you've had an amazing year, and obviously, big things on the rise, and hopefully for Pet Needs in the continued future, and hopefully, album number 3, you'll get that pen to paper and get that one out as well.
Fingers crossed. I'm terrified.
Well, excellent. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, Johnny, for joining us.
Oh, Paul, it's been a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Pet Needs. Do pop along to one of their shows, and of course, check out their album Primetime Entertainment. And if you would, please do follow them on social media. You can also follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt, and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening, and we will be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.